Okay. We are recording.
Great. Okay. I'm Eileen Gilbert. I'm the director at Belmont Library, and I'm part of the Reads Program Committee. We're here to talk about programming and outreach in the past year and what it might look like in the near future. And yeah, do we want to start with a question or introduction?
I think maybe if everybody just goes around and says who they are before we get into it, we don't need. Anyways, I'm Kristen. I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at Manchester Community College and a member of the Reads Programming Committee. Carol?
I'm Carol Iman, and I'm the Outreach and Marketing Librarian at the Nashua Public Library.
Laura?
I'm Laura Pizzone. I'm the Assistant Director at the Newbury Public Library and part of the Reads Program Committee.
Shayla?
I'm Shayla. I'm the Interlibrary Loan Librarian at the Laconia Public Library, and I also do some outreach.
Okay. Suze?
I'm Sue Harmon. I'm a librarian at the Manchester City Library. I coordinate our programming, and I'm also the membership chair of Reads.
Great. Thank you. So what was your first thought when you realized that programming was going to have to change in a major way about this time last year?
I guess my first thought was I have to learn to use something like Zoom or whatever.
I remember seeing a lot of webinars come out around May last year, several talking about adapting programs to, sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Is that on my end or your end?
Might be on your end, but I think you can go ahead and.
Okay. So I remember seeing these webinars talking about how other libraries are still continuing to offer their programming. There was one in Chicago. I think there was one in New York as well. And I watched those webinars and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's go. And because we didn't have really a lot of a coordinated programming effort at Manchester, I just kind of started doing programs, like reaching out and to presenters and being like, hey, do you want to do your program, but just do it virtually? And for several months, I was working with presenters to like teach them, well, not really teach them, but like get them more comfortable adapting their program to Zoom. And then they would offer it for our patrons. It worked out pretty well.
Yeah, we started out kind of from that time when we shut down in March to probably June. We started out just kind of reposting a lot of what other people were doing on our Facebook and our social media and website and all that. And then we realized, oh, well, we could probably do some of this ourselves. And so we started to kind of do like the make and take bags. And we've done a few virtual programs, but we're such a small town that it's not always that successful. But yeah, once we kind of got the hang of things, we also tried to jump right in.
Yeah, I actually got kind of excited because I usually don't do many of the programming. But when it started going virtual, it was like, oh, we need to make videos and do technical stuff. And I was like, okay, I know how to do that. So that was kind of mostly ended up being, I did a lot of tech help videos. Kind of how to use some of our online services, how to use some of the Google services, how to navigate our catalog and library website, that kind of thing. Those are fun. I like doing those.
Yeah, we also made some videos like that, and it came to our realization that there were a lot of people who didn't know how to simply log into their card online or search the catalog, and it became a very helpful resource for them. So, especially when it came to porch pickup time.
Do you have a certain type of program that you've noticed has done well, or are you just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks?
I know our take and makes, the crafts have gone very well, and we, especially for the kids, we often run out of them. We also do, for adults, we do crafts where it's, you come and pick up the materials at curbside or in the building, and then we have a Zoom at the end of the week with instruction, and those are getting good views. And as far as like the typical, you know, like a lecture or whatever, it was kind of slow in the beginning. We actually didn't start doing them until I think August. But lately it's picked up a lot. And, you know, last week I had something where I had to turn people away, which at 100. So that was nice. Well, no, it wasn't nice to turn them away, but it was nice to get that many people.
The feedback's really positive there.
Yeah, our take and make bags have also been a great success. Our children's librarian has done a really great job putting a lot of variety into them, and we've even seen quite an uptake. We do teen bags as well, and we never really get that many teens to our actual programs, but we've had for our small library, we've had probably 10 to 12 kids who consistently pick up their bags every month, and it's nice to see those faces doing that. As far as adult programs, we do a lot of crafting as well, which seems to be very popular. And then we've had a few virtual events. One that was really popular was Arlington National Cemetery. That one, I think we had 60 or 65 people. But then we did one on Red Sox, and it only had probably less than 10 people. And there's the ones that fall in between, like cooking demonstrations. And so it's kind of just, I don't know if it's the time of the year or what people are interested in, but it's just kind of like normal programming where it's up and down, so.
Yeah, the take and make crafts have been incredibly successful for us as well. We've got kids bags, we've got teen bags, and we have adult bags, and they all, at least the adults, like all go out for the most part. So that's been incredibly successful. And we haven't really done very much synchronous programming, really. Like I do my Zoom book club, but we haven't really done many lectures. But some of the YouTube videos have gotten quite a few views, and I think the one with the most was, weirdly enough, it was adjusting security and privacy settings account. It's kind of interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, what means are you using to get the word out about what you have? Obviously, email newsletter, maybe? Facebook, Twitter, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we also have a local little newspaper that puts, it's divided up by towns, and we put it in there, and they write about us every week, and that helps with the small town folk.
We've had a lot of luck with, it's mostly the email newsletter that people are using to hear about us, but Facebook, and we don't do Twitter, but we have slides, like on our homepage, we have slides where we put graphics about our events. So we basically stopped doing flyers, except for like, we'll do a quarterly calendar and maybe a bookmark about all the events, but we used to do like a flyer for every event. And even while we've been open this past year, during those months, just people aren't taking them. They're not coming into the building very much. And when they do come in, they don't want to linger. They're not hanging out and finding our flyers. So we just stopped making them.
I will say with us too, with the kids at least, a lot of it is word of mouth between the parents. We've seen some new families we never saw before, and they just keep telling their friends how great these bags are. So.
Yeah, we use a lot of Facebook, and we haven't made a print newsletter since last year, because people won't take them. But yeah, a lot of Facebook. Some we put it up on our website, and Yeah, that's kind of the extent. We have started putting up flyers like right by the door, but they're like stuck to the wall, so people just look at them. They don't take them.
For Manchester, we generally advertise our programs in our newsletter that goes out every other month, and that has all the upcoming programs in that. We do put a couple flyers up. We just opened last week, so there's a couple flyers in the places where people tend to populate in the building. We do a lot of Facebook promotions. We have a blog that posts a little bit before the program. It'll post an event, so if someone's getting updates about the blog, they'll get an update for that. We also post our events on Eventbrite. Those events will generally come up in a Google search. If you search for, local programs, they'll pop up. And we do get a lot of people from out of the country for some of our more popular events. So when we have something that we know is going to be popular, we do registration so that it doesn't get too crazy.
Now, there are a couple of libraries around my area that have joined together to make sure they get a large enough audience for Zoom programming. Is that something that any of your libraries have done? And if so, how successful has it been?
We're actually in the process of doing that. I believe we teamed up with Guilford to bring somebody in, but that hasn't happened yet. So hopefully it'll go well.
We haven't, but I like that idea, so I might libraries to try and set that up.
So I'm in a group. I often, since we're right on the Mass border, I often go to a group of librarians. We meet in Massachusetts to talk about programming, and we've been doing that virtually. So the Newton Mass Public Library got Robert Reich, who used to be the Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton, and he writes a lot of books about income inequality and that kind of thing. So they got him to come for free because he has a new book, and asked other libraries, and there were like 29 libraries that went together on it. So I think like 800 people came to it or something like that. But so that was nice. And then we're working with the Groton Public Library in Massachusetts, and they're having somebody come speak in June about African American, sort of the history of African American cuisine. And again, they asked everybody, other library, they couldn't afford him, so they asked other libraries, and so we're each chipping in. But there's so many libraries that it's not expensive, so it should, it's a little like the Newton one with Robert Reich. It was nice because there wasn't a lot of work for me to do, but we got a lot of the credit. Our customers were happy that we had the program. You don't really get any emphasis on your library, so the speaker doesn't call out the Nashua Public Library when he's talking, but our patrons can ask questions.
Is it something that you would have done before, or would it, I'm interested in how the perceptions of technological barriers have changed in the past year. I know we've learned to do video a lot with our, with the equipment that we had, because it was hard to get equipment. But that's not something that we ever would have considered within our scope a year ago. So what expansions have you made in the area of technology that?
I'm not sure we would have learned to use Zoom and use that for programs. I remember a year or two ago, someone, I was interested in using a speaker from California, and he did things on Skype, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to pay somebody a lot of money to present Skype, you know, that's not very attractive, but now I feel like some of our programs, we're still gonna do them virtually. We have, you know, a lot of elderly people that don't like to drive at night, and they're just so appreciative that there's these programs that now they can come to. They've gotten past the technology, I guess, and are able to be comfortable enough with Zoom to use it.
Well,
And-
plus you probably save on a mileage fee, or you could even
Yeah.
have someone from across the country who would normally charge for hotel and
Right.
such. And now there's more exposure to different programs out there. So.
Yeah. Um, and I find the recordings, you know, not every speaker gives permission to record, but the ones that do, I always send out the link to everybody who registered that night or the next day, so they can watch it, and I tell them they can tell other people about it. And then I post on our web calendar. I have a list of all the recordings and links to them, and they're getting a lot of views. I mean, often more views than people who actually came to the program. I think people register often for programs, know they can't come at that time, but they expect to get a link to the recording. That's why they register. So that, I mean, I think that's really nice. And I kind of do the same thing. You know, I've been going myself to programs that I would never drive to. So in a way, it's nice.
So how do you, with all these different programs, how do you record for statistical purposes? How do you count views, live views, recorded views, or, well, the take and make kits, I know at my library, it's easy. If they take one, that's one person participating. But for the videos, it's a little more nebulous, I think.
I thought I heard that for state statistics, that take and make kits don't count unless you've made a video to go along or had some kind of live element to it. I don't know, I don't remember what email that was in, but that came up when I was talking with someone else about recording statistics, which bothers me. If I made a kit, I would like it to count, no matter how my instructions were given. But for, sorry?
That sounds familiar. I think maybe it was in the NAES list, but.
I think right now we're still just counting, you know, if someone took a kit, that's one participant. For the views, I actually have a survey that I send out after the program. I send it out at the end of the program, and I send it out after the program's over. I send it out with the link to the recording if we have one, or it's just a wrap-up email saying, thank you for coming, please fill out the survey. And there's a question there where I ask how many people in your household watch the video with you. So that way, if there's one person, there's one person in the Zoom meeting, but like 2 or 3 people are watching the program, I can still count those 2 extra people. And that's helped for several recordings booths by at least 10 people.
Our director said that we should, for the recordings, we should, at the end of the month, look at the number that have seen it and record that number, which isn't like, you know, if a program was on the 1st of the month, it gets a lot more views by the end of the month than if it was on the 8th, of course. But the problem would be, let's say a program was on like September 28th. Well, if you took the number of views after a month, then how do you divide them between, that's like 2 quarters, you know, and we report by quarter, or if they were between 2 years. So it's not a perfect number. And also when they say views, you know, I don't know how long the person has watched. They might have watched for 1 minute. So I'm not sure how Zoom records the number of views if the person has to watch for a certain amount of time. But I just take the number that I get from Zoom.
Yeah, we've kind of been having that issue too.
Yeah.
How the heck do you count views?
Yeah. I mean, I think on Facebook I've heard that, like, you know, you only have to listen for like a minute, watch for a minute, and it counts it as a view. Or
Facebook does have more detailed analytics of people who watch it. It'll break down to who watched the first 3 seconds, who watched 3 minutes, and then who watched for longer than 10 minutes if it's a recording that's that long. So if they do get uploaded to Facebook, you can see, you know, what the views are like and the behavior of your viewers. I think YouTube also has that available.
YouTube does, yeah.
Information, yeah. So we haven't really been using it yet, but after a little while, we move all of our recorded programs from Zoom to an unlisted YouTube account where we can send someone a link for them to watch it, but you can't like just search YouTube for Manchester City Library so-and-so recording, and it won't come up in the searches. They have to have a direct link. But if those links are on our website, then they can just go right there.
Yeah, we've also been using YouTube quite a bit for, at least, you know, from an academic perspective, you know, recording how to do, or, you know, public libraries do this too, the small little technical things of how to do this on the website, how to do that. And we just put them on YouTube because it's great to be able to share it with everyone.
one thing I haven't done, which probably should, but I mean, we'll do a program on Zoom, but I haven't live streamed it at the same time on Facebook, YouTube, just because I feel like I'm the only staff member doing in the Zoom, and I have a whole list of things I have to remember for each program, and I just feel like I can't be dealing with, you know, Facebook Live and people saying that they're having technical difficulties there when I'm trying to deal with everything else and listen to the program. Because sometimes, you know, like I usually have to read the questions to the presenter, and I don't want to sound somewhat halfway intelligent, like I listen to the program. So there's only so much one person can do in one program.
That makes a lot of sense. I know that for other like other professional YouTubers, when they have live events on Twitch or Facebook Live, they'll have, if they're popular enough, they'll have more than one moderator, and it's each of their jobs to keep an eye on, you know, the different streams of comments from the people participating. Because you're right, it can get very hectic if people are commenting and you're also trying to split your attention. You could miss a question, or you could miss someone misbehaving, and you don't want that.
What kind of difficulties have you found or overcome in the course of learning all of this over a year? Are there any particular lessons you think that other libraries might benefit from?
We're still struggling with an online book group, and I don't know if that's mostly because the people who come to our book groups are of a certain age and aren't quite comfortable with the technology still, or they just like the in-person feel when you're doing a book club. But we're still struggling to kind of get our core group of 10 people or so back for that every month. So.
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that as well, because my group is all seniors, and so you know, they're dedicated. I'm pretty lucky, because there was one of them. She just couldn't get her camera and mic to work the first few times. It was just awful, because we were telling her, okay, your mic's muted. No, oh no, now it's not muted. Okay, can you talk? No? Okay. And it was just a lot of troubleshooting, but the last meeting she finally figured it out. It was so good. But yeah, I've definitely technology difficulties and seniors don't always mix.
I mean, it is nice to see when they do finally get the hang of it and you're like,
Yeah, it is.
We've had the same problem with people not coming to the book club as much as they used to. We'll get maybe 3 to 5 people, and well, we used to get maybe 8. Yeah. And actually, we have, in normal times, we have babies and books, which is just a baby story time. And now we've been doing it on Zoom and cannot. One time we had 12 people, but that was like, there was like maybe one child and then parents and grandparents, and, you know. So, and then we had it the other day, we only got 2 people, and I kind of don't know what else to do to get people to come. I put money into Facebook ads, and you know, maybe people just don't want to do Zoom with their little babies. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I have a 16-month-old, and as much as I've been wanting and itching to bring him to an in-person story time, I won't do the computer with him yet, not till he's a couple years old. But
Yeah. Yeah. I found in the beginning, I had a few presenters who didn't really know what they were doing with Zoom. And that was a little like harrowing because, you know, like one of them lost the invitation and he didn't even sign on till like 5 minutes after the program was supposed to start. And this was after we had gotten together on Zoom, you know, a few days before and practiced, and then someone else just could not figure out how to share his screen and had to email his presentation to me so I could show it on my screen, and he had to tell me how to move the slides forward. And then that happened again, and I finally figured out what the problem. It happened to me with a few people. They were getting into Zoom and they're, you know, when you first come in, your window's not maximized. And so they couldn't find the toolbar in Zoom and find the share screen button. So when that happens, they just need to maximize their window. But, you know, again, it's like last minute problems and you're trying to figure out how to do a presentation without their PowerPoint. Crazy.
Yeah, I think technical difficulties are the most difficult to work through gracefully because you're under a lot of pressure there.
yeah, and you know, everyone's watching you.
But I mean, you know, 6 months, 7 months later now, most of the presenters are very comfortable with it, I'm finding. That's amazing.
Yeah, I will say I've been impressed with how certain presenters adapt their programs to be on Zoom. So it's been nice to see that they're making an effort.
Yeah.
Does anybody think that their patrons are getting a little burned out on the use of Zoom?
Yes, definitely. Even staff is, so.
Yeah. I think when you've got people who might be working from home and doing Zoom meetings all day, and then we ask them to join a program that's on Zoom, or they've been dealing with their kids on Zoom, you know, asking them to do one additional thing, it might just, it's a stretch for them, perhaps.
Mm.
I think another thing that came up was in the beginning, I thought when people were like going into the chat and saying, this isn't working, that isn't working, like I thought it was all on me, like it was all my fault that wasn't working. I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized a lot of it, it's their internet connection that's the problem. You know, I'm not controlling everything. So. I haven't heard as many complaints as I did in the beginning about that kind of thing.
We're all getting a little more technically proficient then.
Yeah.
As we look forward to hopefully decreasing case numbers, how are you feeling about outside programming? We didn't try any of that last summer at my library, but I think this summer we're going to be digging into that.
Yeah, we're doing all of our program, at least for the kids, is outside. We're doing, since the theme is Tails and Tales, we're definitely doing a lot of animal focused programs, and we have a nice kind of area next to our parking lot that's nice and open that we can spread out with kids. But we still haven't done any story times yet. Waiting for the warmer weather with those, but I think all of our programming will be outside.
I think for the kids programs, they're planning a number of things that could have an outside component. I think the teen librarian is going to, there's going to be take and makes, but like one of the days you can come and get it, like say on Tuesdays, she's going to be out on the plaza with a table showing people how to do it. So if it rains, she doesn't have to be there, but you know, they can still take the thing and make it. We normally do outdoor concerts in the summer, and we've decided not to do them again this year because it's just too iffy. You know, they have to be planned far in advance. You have to book your dates, and it's too iffy as to whether we can have big crowds like that. And the audience is usually older, and they're probably more cautious about that kind of thing. And if, what do you do if it rains? You know, some performers want to be paid even if it rained and we couldn't have it inside. So we just decided not to do it this year.
Fair.
That's fair.
And we've been having, the Friends usually have a big book sale in March, but they haven't been able to do that. That's usually indoors, but they're going to do, and they did last year, some outdoor book sales, you know, much smaller. That worked out well.
Yeah, we're hoping we do a couple on Memorial Day and one in July, but we didn't do them last year, and I think they're hoping to really do it this year. So.
So outdoor programming continuing on Zoom, and other things. Have you had, to change the subject slightly, any kind of programming that you hadn't had success with before, but that are better over Zoom, or that people are more interested in this past year?
Our attendance has dramatically increased overall. The city library is not in the best location. When we had in-person programming, I would hear all the time that people didn't want to be driving in the city at night, that people didn't want to be walking around downtown in the evenings or for the programs, or walking by the park where a lot of the homeless people camp out during the summer. They don't like the area. So because we've had the ability to join remotely and view these programs from your home, our attendance has been amazing. Programs where we would normally get like maybe 10 people, we're getting like 30. Programs where nobody would show up, we're getting at least 5. And 5 doesn't sound great, but like those are the programs that are like not entertainment, they're like informational programs. So like we had a financial series that, compared to all my other programs, didn't do great, but compared to if they were in person, were blockbusters. It was great.
So do you see yourself continuing those because of those reasons?
Absolutely, yes. They weren't necessarily worth the effort because no one would attend, then why are we doing them? So we weren't offering them, but now that we get at least a handful of people, I mean, even one person is worth the effort to be offering those programs. So we're really happy with that.
I wanted to wind up on a slightly different, again, question about outreach. Obviously, there have been no community events that you could go to, sit at a table, talk to people. We at my library have had some luck in that the school librarians were eager to make sure that their students had library cards. And so we had a great increase in library card participation among the middle school, especially. What kind of outreach can be done right now as far as not necessarily programs, but that kind of making the library a bigger part of the community experience?
We've done similarly to you. We found the schools wanted the kids to have library cards so they could use all the online resources. And the children's librarians have done a lot of school programs on Zoom that have been successful. Another thing we did was the middle school. So our Zoom license, you can only have 100 people at a meeting. But for 1 month, we upped it to 500 because we were having a big Nashua Reads author event. And so during that month, we also, the middle school, one of the middle schools had an author, 2 authors that they wanted to host. And so they co-hosted and used our Zoom account since we had the ability to use it for that many people. So that was good. But we haven't. And in the beginning, our email newsletter, since we weren't having events, I was putting in a lot of things that were going on in the community in there, which I don't normally do. But I stopped it once we started having events. It went back to just being our stuff. So it is a whole for us, especially for adult outreach. We did it. We also expanded books by mail, so more people were eligible for that.
Manchester has a bookmobile that I believe the children's librarian, and we share it with the school district. So I believe last summer there were outreach efforts with the bookmobile to get kids and parents who don't normally have the ability to come down to the library or access our stuff remotely. There were sign-up stations at each of the stops, so they could come and get a library card to use. And I think that helped a lot. I don't have any statistics about that.
We've been working with a lot of our local businesses and restaurants to kind of invite them to participate by offering small prizes and we did a scavenger hunt last summer. We did, all the local businesses in our scavenger hunt. They really enjoyed being a part of it, and it was nice to kind of give them a little bit of, they were in need of some fun, so it helped to kind of provide them with, especially the restaurants, and get people going there. And so that's one thing that we've kind of done, is involve more of our local community, not necessarily just the schools, but the small businesses too.
Nice. Yeah, we've kind of been dealing with the school a bit as well. Our teen librarian went over there and set up a bunch of library cards as well. And we also, we recently got Brain Fuse. And so we've been working with the schools to get some more kids signed up for that as well. And I've been doing my homebound deliveries as well, but I just don't have them open the door. I just drop the books off, and then I take their returns, and then I go.
I think that might be about time for us. So I want to thank you all for participating. And I hope I see you at the roundtables next month. Kristen, you want to stop recording?